Hi guys, welcome back. The international transfer window is finally shut, and now the dust is beginning to settle, I was keen to shine a light on some of the summer's biggest stories. To get your questions answered in future weeks, make sure you've subscribed to The Athletic and leave a comment underneath my weekly column or via our discussion pages. You can sign up to The Athletic for just £1 or $1 a month right now by going to theathletic.com/Ask Ornstein. You can find that discount link in the description below this video. On this week's show, how Arsenal ended up snatching Thomas Partey, why Manchester United missed out on Jadon Sancho, and some quickfire questions from our subscribers to round things off. Okay, let's kick off with the signing of Thomas Partey by Arsenal. I'll start with the deal itself and then provide some wider context. Partey's a player Arsenal have admired for a great deal of time. They've scouted him since 2014, actively pursued him since 2018, could have got the deal done in 2019, but they ended up favouring a winger. Nicolas Pepe came in for a huge amount of money, and that left very little budget for Partey, despite the fact, I was told then, that he was desperate to join. But the contacts continued. Arsenal made Partey their top priority for this window. They always knew that they had that €50 million release clause plus his desire to fall back on if they needed it. And in the meantime, especially in this financial climate, they tried to negotiate a lower fee or a creative solution like a swap or a player plus cash. However, Atletico Madrid were adamant that he would only leave if a club, Arsenal or anybody else, paid his release clause in full. At the same time as looking into a holding central midfielder, Arsenal wanted a more attacking one, an 8 or a 10, in the form of Houssem Aouar at Lyon. Negotiations took place, Arsenal were optimistic, but as the weekend before the deadline neared, an agreement could not be reached between the two clubs, and Arsenal weren't going to be held to ransom or become too fixated on one player at any expense. They did have other options, but over that weekend they really honed in on the holding central midfielder. They considered Jorginho among their options, but that was always unlikely. I don't think Chelsea would have sold to a rival, and I'm not sure he was available unless Chelsea got a player in for that position, and ultimately they didn't. So Thomas Partey came back to the fore. Arsenal communicated to his camp that they would be paying the release clause in full. So this hotted up on Monday when they deposited that money with La Liga in Spain. Partey underwent his medical in Spain and the deal was done. A 4-year contract with an option of a 5th. How did Arsenal finance this? Well, if you look at their books, you would probably be left scratching your head. However, we saw last summer with Nicolas Pepe that they are being backed in the market by their owners, KSE, Stan Kroenke. And in an interview I did with his son, the director Josh Kroenke, in the summer of 2019, we didn't find out if Arsenal had received a cash injection or some other means, but he did say that they had put instruments in place to make this level of spending possible, and it appears to have happened again. Now, some people might be disgruntled with this and say, but Arsenal made their players take wage cuts and they laid off 55 members of staff in redundancies, plus just recently the man inside the Gunnosaurus suit. But they would point out that those are two different operations and that many of those redundancies were necessary in any circumstances as part of their streamlining process, as they describe it, and that they need to continue to invest in their core business, the football team. And so by bringing a player like Thomas Partey in his prime, they've got a greater chance of success and returning to the Champions League, which is absolutely vital for Arsenal as soon as possible. As for Atletico Madrid, well, they were left seething. They received no notification from Arsenal or Partey that the release clause would be paid. They found out very late in the day from La Liga, and that left them with no time to source a replacement. I'm sure it will have soured relations between the two clubs, but there's very little room for sentiment in the market. Arsenal had tried to negotiate, and in the end, they did what Atletico Madrid said they should do, and Arsenal got their man. On to Jadon Sancho, the saga of the summer. And for a blow-by-blow account, head over to The Athletic. We've written a really in-depth piece on this. In summary, Manchester United prioritised a attacking right-sided player in this window. Sancho was top of their list. His club, Borussia Dortmund, set a minimum valuation of 120 million euros. That was pre-pandemic. After the outbreak of COVID, Manchester United thought that valuation would come down and be more realistic to reflect the very difficult market. And I'm not sure if that was because they genuinely couldn't afford it, because they didn't want to stretch that far during a global health and financial crisis, or a bit of both. But either way, Dortmund stood firm. Dortmund set a deadline of early August. That then got pushed back to, I think it was the 10th of August. It came and went without any progress. And so Dortmund said, it's case closed. You've missed your chance. He's staying with us until at least 2021. I think it was around that time that United contacted Dortmund and said, is this for real? And the kind of message back was, yeah, what else did you expect? So United could stand accused of misreading this situation, misjudging it, calling Dortmund's bluff unsuccessfully, not believing them. I can kind of understand why they might have done that, because in previous times we've seen Dortmund say similar things publicly, only to end up selling at the end of the window, in the cases, for example, of Ousmane Dembélé and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I was also told by some contacts, even as late as the last couple of weeks of the window, that if United come up with, say, 140, 150 million euros, Dortmund might well consider a sale and then present it as being exceptional circumstances. In and amongst all of this was Jadon Sancho. He was open to the idea of joining Manchester United. He would have been happy to do so if a deal could be struck. He exchanged messages with Marcus Rashford expressing excitement about the possibility, but he also told teammates on a recent England camp that he was relaxed about the situation. He was easy either way. And I do think he probably felt a little bit undervalued by Manchester United in recent weeks, because they didn't ever really get close to where they needed to be to strike this transfer. What they were doing in the background was pursuing other potential options in case Sancho didn't happen. My understanding is that in the final days of the window there was no movement at all on Sancho. They were looking at the likes of Ousmane Dembélé, previously considered Douglas Costa, Ivan Perisic. There was also talk of Ismaila Sarr and various others. They did actually sign two young 18-year-old top prospects by all accounts, and then they brought in Edinson Cavani up front, which is perhaps controversial because a couple of weeks previously they were not looking to sign a striker. It was not part of the plan. They also signed Alex Telles at left back from Porto, a Brazil international. So it was a bit of a mixed market, and there will be plenty of focus on, say, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as manager. Were these signings his choices? How strong is he? How powerful is he in the equation at United? He has even come under pressure in the last few days. Reports saying that Mauricio Pochettino might be waiting in the wings. There'll be constant talk of United's structure. Some suggestions in the piece we've written that Ed Woodward and the Glazers didn't exactly see eye to eye on how hard they should push for Sancho. They have spent pretty heavily in the market over the last 3 windows, I think, more than most other European clubs. They have backed Solskjaer, but the question is, have they done so with quality, or is it just quantity and outlay? People will continue to talk about the need for a director of football. I think that's a no-brainer, although I don't think it's the solution to all of their problems. United feel that they are moving in the right direction. They know they're open to criticism, but I think this club is going to be an absolutely fascinating story on and off the pitch in terms of football and finances and personnel over the coming weeks, months and years. To your quickfire questions, and Jason asks, I can't help but notice you have a stack of books in the background. Anything you'd recommend? Good spot, Jason, and I'd love to give you a better answer, but the truth is I don't have a great deal of time to read many of them. Of those I have, I'd certainly point you towards The Nowhere Men by Michael Calvin, top sports writer and broadcaster. It looks into the world of football scouting and recruitment, certainly opened my eyes to an area of the game I knew so little about. And then Done Deal by Daniel G, sports lawyer. He looks into football transfers, contracts, agents, commercial deals, image rights, and so much more. Really educational and insightful. And one more that isn't behind me is Arsene Wenger, My Life in Red and White. That's coming out soon. He'll be doing a load of interviews around that, and I can't wait to hear his thoughts and read the book, so check that out too. Next up, Alberto. Just how close were Everton to getting Romero or Gazzaniga? What were Man United and Spurs demanding in return? Alberto, I'm not sure how close they got. I do know that Everton were looking into Gazzaniga, but that what Daniel Levy, the Tottenham chairman, wanted for him was too expensive for what Everton were looking to pay. I'm not sure on Romero. They ended up going for Olsen on loan from Roma, and I'm sure the idea will be that that puts pressure on Jordan Pickford, who's made a number of very high-profile mistakes and hasn't really had competition for his place. Now, presumably, he does so, and it will be fascinating to see how he reacts. Finally, Shane. Who are the main players from the EFL that will be targeted by Premier League clubs? Sarr, Benrahma and Rodon spring to mind, but are there any others? Yeah, you've identified some of the main ones there, Shane. I'd probably add to your list Todd Cantwell from Norwich. Many Premier League clubs have shown interest in him. We've talked about him on this video before and in my Monday column. Norwich would want around £20 million for him. I think Fulham have held some level of talks. Also, Leeds United have been heavily linked. Really good player and prospect. Joshua King at Bournemouth. Premier League clubs well aware of his availability. I think Bournemouth would want around £20 million too, but may accept maybe 10 to 12 from what I was hearing. There was a late offer from Torino before the deadline, but it was far below the asking price. And then also Karlan Grant. He looks to have been lined up for a move to West Brom. Let's see if that one comes to fruition. The deadline is Friday the 16th of October. Hi everybody, thanks for watching. Subscribe to this channel to get the latest from this show, Ask Ornstein, as well as other videos and podcasts from Tifo and The Athletic. Make sure you check out the Ornstein and Chapman podcast too, free to listen wherever you get your podcasts and ad-free when you subscribe to The Athletic.